everybody. My name is Gina Maria Allenberti. I'm the Executive Director at the Connecticut Trolley Museum. Please check us out on www.ct-trolley for all of our upcoming events. We have a lot of great programs coming up for all ages. Today we are here because we are starting our first ever podcast called Trolley Crossings. Here we have Bert Johanson, a long-term volunteer and member who we're going to interview because he's a wealth of knowledge. Hi, Bert.
Good morning.
You're our first contestant.
Okay.
So, Bert, you've been at the museum for a very long time.
Yes, I have.
When did you start?
I came in June 1961.
1961.
And it was a Saturday because it was the first day they ran their steam engine. In fact, I have ticket number 1 and number 2 from that ride.
You still have them?
I still have them.
Oh, wow.
And when we got back to the station, Bill Wood was the conductor, and he said to anybody interested in joining the museum, we need people. So I joined, and I'm still here.
So you were there just as a visitor?
As a visitor.
That's how it started?
That's correct.
Oh, and we hooked you right away.
That's right.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do daily?
Okay, well, I grew up in Hartford, in East Hartford. You know, I went to school there. After I got out of school, I went to work for the wire mold company in West Hartford. They were an electrical manufacturer, and I stayed there for 41 years. I ended up as the corporate traffic manager for the whole United States. I traveled extensively. And then in 2003, rather, they offered us early retirement. So I retired at 59.
Okay.
And I was married at the time. I traveled for a while, and I was bored. So in 2004, I answered an ad for a bus company to work in the safety office. And I'm still there after 20 years. And
wow.
I work every day.
Yes, you do. We know that. You juggle a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So you said you visited the museum in 61 and you got hooked. What have you been doing for us ever since then?
Well, I started off, working around. We were painting and stuff like that. And then in 1966, I joined the operating department. And I operated on and off. I trained people for years. And the Fire Museum, which is on the same property, started because of the Trolley Museum, because the fire chief came to us and told us that we were setting too many grass fires. So we're either going to stop running the engine or you're going to get your own fire truck.
Is that how it started?
That's how it started.
I did not know that.
So there were 10 of us at the time, and in February of 1968, we bought a fire truck from the city of Torrington, and we still have it. And after that, we used to bring it over on Saturdays. And after we bought the fire truck, we never had another grass fire after that.
Of course. That's how it always happens.
But the steam engine only ran for a few years, and then I became active in the operating department. And until just a few years ago, I operated quite frequently, and I still do from time to time.
Yeah, you're a big help for us at the museum.
And when I came there, we had an operator there who worked for the Hartford and Springfield Street Railway. He was a motorman back before 1914. And he was also a Spanish-American War veteran, and he was in his 80s. And he was still running cars with us. And Francis Lefevre, he since, of course, passed away. But most of the people that were there were all in their 60s and 70s, and Francis was in his late 80s. So I was a young guy. And even today, I think most of the operators at our museum are older.
They are.
But it's the young people that are going to keep the place going.
Yep, that's what we're trying to really concentrate on, is get the younger crowd in and keep them and make them enjoy the museum, and hopefully they'll be there like you are.
Yeah.
So what was at the museum back in the day when you were there?
Well, it was very little compared to what's there today. There was the North Road Station, and there was the Kelly Barn, and there was the Woods Barn down the line. And that was about it. The parking lot was just a lawn, and it was only usable like in the summertime. And over the years, and the track only went to Borup Road, and then it extended to Winkler Road, and then finally to the end of the line. But we used to carry sometimes on a Sunday, because you have to remember, back 30, 40 years ago, there was nothing to do on Sunday.
Right.
You couldn't go anywhere.
It's a lot different than nowadays.
Or you could go to the movies, or you could go to the Trolley Museum.
Yep.
And there were days in the summertime when we'd carry 1,000 people on a Sunday. But, the throughput, people came and went. Today, the average visitors there 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
So, they're more of an experience. In the old days, it was just a ride.
Just to ride. And what cars did we ride? I mean, I know
We
you
had
said
836,
Okay.
we had 840 and 1326, and we still have 2 of them. Well, we have 840. It's in storage. But those cars still run today.
Yes, they
like
do.
836 was the first trolley car that I ever ran.
Wow.
And
How was the training like back then?
it was rather informal. However, all of the people that were in charge were trolley motormen. Or, of course, they were bus drivers by the time. So I was taught by people who really ran trolley cars, like Francis Lefevre,
Yeah.
for a living.
Yeah.
And, today, of course, the art is gone because even the new trolley cars that are around are all very sophisticated, all, computer controlled, where in the old days, you ran the car yourself,
Right.
like we still do.
Right. So the restoration building wasn't there.
No, the restoration building was built in 1970. The secretary of the museum at the time, Leonard Beach, was very friendly with the state historical commissioner in Hartford, and he was able to get the museum a grant to build that building in 1970.
1970.
And that
wow.
was a huge step forward because
Sure.
before that, everything had been done outside.
Right. Right. And then next was the visitor center, right? Was that the
Now,
next
the next
big?
thing we built the northern barn,
Oh, Northern. Okay.
and then, of course, in 1990, the state of Connecticut gave the museum a grant for the visitor center.
Right.
And that was 34 years ago.
Right.
That was just a field. We used to have deer there in the morning at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
If you were up there early,
Yeah.
there were deer. And but that building was paid for by the state of Connecticut, and it's built to resemble a car barn.
Right.
And
Right.
they had a very similar one in Hartford at the Connecticut company on Vernon Street, which has since been torn down.
Oh.
But that building was modeled after that building.
I didn't know that. See, this is why we have you here. We're learning all this knowledge. Well, I
Yeah.
am. Did we do special events back then too, like we do them now?
Interestingly enough, the first special event we ever did was Winterfest.
Okay.
And it was a kind of a joke after a while. Probably, let's decorate the place for wintertime. And everybody thought that was kind of silly, but it turned out to be a huge undertaking. In fact, I would say that the Connecticut Trolley Museum was the first, maybe in the nation, but at least in Connecticut, to ever do that. And now it's all over.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I never really thought about that.
Yep.
Wow, that's really kind of our name to fame, right? That
Yeah.
Winterfest.
And even today, it's still a big money maker, a
It
big
is.
activity for the museum.
It is. How can you compare, maybe the 1980s to now? Like, how do we differ? What do you think the big difference
Well,
is?
in the 1980s and prior to that, it was more of a club atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
You did what you wanted, and you came and they did have rules for when operating the cars, but as far as the museum itself, it was kind of an informal, group. And now, of course, today it's altogether different. It's more organized. It's on a business, run on a business basis,
Yeah.
which is really what it needs to be if it's
Sure.
if it's going to survive.
Yep.
Because if you look at some of the clubs that were popular back, the Italian Club and the VFW and the American Legion, those guys are all dying because they're just, they're clubs, and it
Right.
just doesn't fit in today's the way people act today. But the Trolley Museum has survived, and we're in a new phase right now, and we've gone through various phases, some bad, some real bad, but now we're, in a really good place right now with good, decent management and people who understand how important the visitor experience is, which
Yep.
is the reason that we're around.
Exactly. We know we try to follow our mission. We have policies we follow.
Yep.
We have a great board of directors. We have some wonderful,
Yep.
wonderful volunteers. We're building our staff. But yeah, we are here to educate the visiting public. That's our mission, and I think we're doing a great job.
Yeah, and that's the really reason why an organization like the Trolley Museum is tax exempt, because they're educational, not because they save old stuff,
Right.
but because they give a education experience to the public.
Right. Right. Let me see. What's your favorite car to operate?
Well, it was 836. That was the first car that I ever operated.
And we're still running it today.
And we're still running it today. I've ridden those cars down in New Orleans, and they still run them. And it's interesting because those were made by the Trolley Thomas Company. And if you look around, the biggest school bus operators in the manufacturer is Thomas Industries, and that's Trolley Thomas.
Yep.
The same company.
I don't think a lot of people realize that. Now, tell us about your role, because you're our safety director at the Connecticut Trolley Museum.
I've been involved in safety because of the fact that the wire mill company had a trucking operation. I was involved in driver safety, stuff like that, because of insurance purposes and federal regulations. And I became quite interested in safety, and I developed a lot of stuff. And that's when I went to work for the bus company in the safety office. And, you know, again, the volunteers are important, but they have to obey the rules. And that's why we have, you know, and we don't have a lot of real hard, firm rules, but we have rules that make the operation safe, because remember, you're carrying the public.
Yes.
Whether you're driving a school bus or a city bus
Right.
or an antique trolley car,
Right.
you're carrying the public.
Yeah.
So there's an obligation to your riders to be sure that the people are qualified, and the equipment is in good shape, as well as providing a good visitor experience.
Right. Yeah. And you're running on equipment, which can be dangerous on the track. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So we thank you for being our safety director and helping us with that. Tell us your take, how you think how this museum started. If a visitor was to come in, how would you kind of give them the storyline of how the museum started back in 1940?
Well, I think it was started by a bunch of fans who liked trolley cars. And at first they were going to buy a railroad right-of-way in Trumbull, Connecticut that was for sale that had track on it.
I didn't know that either.
And they said, no, we want to, because most of the people were from Hartford. They were able to buy the land that was owned by L.L. Ensworth Company. They owned the trolley right away. They had bought it because they had scrapped the track back in 1926. And the right-of-way that we run on was a piece of land that was actually owned by the trolley company. Most railroad lines are on land that they have a right-of-way. But the object is that if they ever stop running, it reverts to the landowners. Well, the Connecticut Trolley Museum actually owns the land they operate on,
Right.
as does the Branford Museum in East Haven.
Yeah.
They own the property.
Right. The Connecticut Trolley Museum is in the process of recruiting new volunteers. There's many opportunities here for you to get some volunteer hours or community hours or just to give back. Volunteers are so important here at the Connecticut Trolley Museum. They basically run the museum. We only have one full-time employee, several part-time, and everyone else is a volunteer here. Our special events are run by volunteers, our operators are volunteers, the people that fix the trolleys are volunteers, clerical work, membership drive. Everybody here is a volunteer. So if we didn't have our volunteers, we wouldn't exist. Now let's hear from some of our current volunteers on why they volunteer here at the Connecticut Trolley Museum.
I got involved with the Trolley Museum once I retired. I was looking for some interesting things to do, and I had always been interested in trolleys. In fact, I visited this museum back when I was a kid, and when I saw the opportunity to come here and become a motorman, I thought that was really great, so I jumped at the opportunity.
I volunteer at this trolley museum because back in September of 1999, for my 13th birthday, or going on 13, my father wanted to take me somewhere special after my paper route, and it was this place. I had no clue what this trolley museum was, never knew it existed, and the first time I was ever here, it just instantly hit me. This place had a certain magic to it, and I remember it was a Sunday, and the first cars I ever seen out here, trolley cars, was car 2600 in 1850. And ever since that, I just wanted to be up here as much as I possibly could. And at the time, this was the closest thing that I can get to railroading.
The thing I enjoy the most here when volunteering at this museum is the historical aspect of our property. I learn a lot of information about our cars, our equipment, and about our property here, as we are sitting on an original branch line from the Hartford and Springfield Street Railway. I love coming in here every day and learning more and more about our pieces of equipment, getting more opportunities to talk to different motormen, different people who've been here for a lot much longer than me, and just learning more about the historical value.
I started volunteering at the Trolley Museum in April of 2021. Around the time of the pandemic, I was stuck at home. I was unemployed. I was still in high school. I was in my senior year, actually. And I was stuck at home like all the time. And I really needed something to do. So I was actually contacted by one of the trainers here at the Trolley Museum saying, hey, if you're looking for something to do, you want to get community service hours for your high school, we have a program to learn how to do this. And I've been interested in trains basically my entire life. They really helped form like my personality and what I'm really into. So volunteering at this museum was honestly one of the greatest decisions that I've ever made, because it gives me an excuse to get out of the house, and it also gives me a way to finally relax. Especially because during the pandemic, life had gotten a little stressful. My family was short on money and I didn't really have the means to take care of myself. So being able to find this place and give myself something to do and be able to make a name for myself that wasn't sitting in a chair for 8 hours a day was great. It truly was amazing.
Without our volunteers here at the Connecticut Trolley Museum, we wouldn't be alive. We wouldn't be able to operate the trolleys and give the history to the community and educate and teach why we're here, why we exist. If we didn't have volunteers, none of that would happen. So we love our volunteers. We're a great family here. And it means so much to us to have the dedication and support from the community. You know, this is why we kind of want to start this podcast, because you and there's so many others are a wealth of knowledge, and we need to get that out there. We need to record it because it is part of our history, and we don't want it to go away. What do you love about the museum?
Well, the atmosphere, you know, I work on both fire trucks and the trolley cars, and I've done that for a number of years, and it keeps me out of trouble. I could, instead of going to the VFW and sitting at the bar, I can go up to the Trolley Museum and do, you know, constructive work.
Yes, yes.
I've done a lot of stuff over the years. I've done electrical wiring in buildings. I've done painting, and lately, of course, I've done a lot on the alarm systems and the surveillance system that we have, and that's what I've kind of ended up doing over the last 20 so years, was the surveillance system and the alarms.
Yep, you're a big part of that, and you continue to be. What do you love about volunteering?
Again, you know, you're giving back to the community. You know, you're keeping busy instead of wasting your time watching TV or playing pool. That's been my logic. And some of the other people that are there, it's the same thing over the years. You know, we've had a lot of people come and go over the years, and you know, right now we have a lot of people that are new, and they're there hopefully to stay. Whether they're going to stay 60 some odd years like I do, that's another question. But
if somebody was to say to you, why should I volunteer at the Connecticut Trolley Museum, what would you say?
I would say that, you know, what do you like to do? You know, do you like to work on mechanical stuff? Do you like to talk to the public? Do you want to run cars? There's a lot of stuff to do to fit with your little niche.
Yes.
It isn't where you come and you're given something to do that you're not interested in. That'll never work in a volunteer organization.
We want you to be happy.
Because a place like the Connecticut Trolley Museum will probably never really survive with paid help. Because in the United States, the typical museum, if they
relied.
I'm trying to say, if they get 50% of their total revenue through the gate, that's a lot.
Yep.
The typical museum has to depend on grants, on donations, and the gate.
And for us, it's, you know, most of our income we bring in is from our special events.
That's correct.
Which, if we didn't have volunteers, we would never be able to do the special events.
Yeah. But you'd never be able to run the place with paid help.
No.
I think some of these amusement parks, like compounds, they do that. But, you know, that's a big bucks. I think it's like $25 or $30 to get in there. So there's a lot, you know, and they have a big investment from outside people, millions of dollars, where the Trolley Museum has kind of done everything themselves.
Yeah, we do mostly everything ourselves. Yeah.
Except for the visitor center Every building on that property was built by the members, even the fire museum building.
No, sir.
Yes, that is correct. We built the fire museum building all by ourselves.
Oh, I didn't realize that either. So every building but the
Every
visitor
building,
center.
the track, all the infrastructure.
Kelly Barn too?
The Kelly Barn,
And,
the
and
shop.
the restoration shop?
Yep,
Wow.
Yep.
I did not realize
We've
that.
used contractors to do like
Certain
you know
parts of-
fix the doors, but the fire museum building, we built that in about 6 months by ourselves.
I did not know that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Fire Museum? Because I don't think a lot of our viewers know that not only can you visit the Connecticut Trolley Museum, but we have a whole nother museum on property, the Connecticut Fire Museum.
And again, it started because the museum needed a fire truck because of grass fires with the steam engine. And then after a while, we had people come to us and say, well, my brother has a fire truck. He doesn't know what to do with it. So within a few years, we ended up with 10 fire trucks. And the management of the museum at the time was very, very concerned about the possible liability of a fire truck out on the road. So we started a separate corporation, 501c3, just like the Trolley Museum, but it's a nonprofit recognized by the Internal Revenue for probably liability purposes. Although fire trucks today they don't go out much, and they're relatively safe, because you're not driving at night and stuff like that.
But what do you have over there in the museum? How many fire trucks? How
We
many
have
buses?
16 fire trucks. We've got the Hartford Circus Fire from 1944. The first fire truck to arrive at that from Engine 7 in Hartford was a 1928 American LaFrance, and we have that. It came to us to be scrapped, and our people, refurbished it, and it runs and pumps today, and it's available. It's a kind of a gas hog. That's why they don't go out. They only get like 1 or 2 miles to the gallon.
Do you think that's the most popular over at the Fire Museum?
No, I think the hook and ladder truck from Springfield, that's 60 feet long.
Okay.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And then you have buses over there.
We have old buses. We've got one we just worked on. We take them out once in a while. We've got what is called a rail bus. There was an experimental bus that was operated by the Connecticut Company to take the place of commuter trains, where they could use the road to go out to the stop, and then they could use rails to come into the city. But it didn't work out because of various reasons, and that's on display. That was gifted to us by the state of Connecticut, and it's probably the only one in existence. We used to run that years ago. The bus company used to let us borrow it, and we'd run it on Sundays and carry the
really?
public. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got pictures of it running, and it was very popular because it was air-conditioned. And we haven't been able to run it lately because it needs work, but it's available. It's still there, and it's really historic because of the fact that it used to run at the museum.
Yeah, that's pretty special. Something, again, I did not know. I'm learning. This is why you're here, Bert. We're learning all this great information and knowledge. Yeah, there's just so much to see when visitors come. It's not just the Trolley Museum and the Visitor Center and taking your trolley ride. You get to experience the Fire Truck Museum.
Well,
so.
it's what they call the whole visitor experience. And a lot of people today, you can't go into a firehouse because of Homeland Security. All the doors are locked.
Right.
So it is a chance to come and see, just like you can look at the trolley cars and ride on them, you can see a fire truck. Some of them are almost 100 years old.
And what kid doesn't like trolleys and fire trucks?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a win-win for the little ones. Well, anything else you'd like our viewers to know before we sign
there's
off?
probably a lot of stuff now. I probably think of it after we're done. But, after all the years I've been there, it's rewarding. We've had good and bad. We've had some management issues back some years ago that the place was pretty low, but today, it's really sprung back, and we're on a road to, really a great attraction. And again, you're competing with, amusement parks and big companies, and I think we do pretty good, considering that we're kind of don't have a lot of money,
right?
Like the big companies do, like Six Flags and like compounds. Those are our competitors, They
are, and we're such a different attraction, but they are our competitors.
And still, the Trolley Museum is still a very reasonable place to visit.
Sure is.
because some of these parks are getting $35 and $40 to go in.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And obviously we want the visitors because we want to keep the trolley history alive.
When I first came there, adults were 25 cents and children were a dime.
Oh my! Well, we've come up a little bit. We're not that cheap, but you know, we're very reasonable. I feel at the museum. Well, we thank you for coming on. We're excited. We're doing this. We thank you for all the years you've volunteered at the museum. Yep. We thank you for being a member and all you do for us. Yep. If anybody wants to volunteer, we have lots of different tasks that we need help with. Like Bert said, reach out to us or check our website out, www.ct-trolley.org. There's a visitation, or there's a volunteer application you can fill out. We'll get back to you and kind of see where you would fit in at the museum. But it's a great place. It's a great group of volunteers that you can not only help out and give back, but you can hang out and have some fun.
Yep.
And we encourage that with our volunteers. So thank you, Bert, for coming on. I appreciate it. And thank you, viewers, for watching. And more to come.
And I hope to be around for quite a few more years.
We want you to be.